Start recording. So guys, thank you very much and welcome to today's session, which is self-care strategies beyond bubble bath with Katie Matthews. So just to give you a little bit of background, if you haven't been on Katie's session yesterday, Katie is a multi-award winning entrepreneur. She is a growth mindset educator, speaker, founder of 3 organizations. Not 1, 2 or 3, yes, 3 organizations, one of them being the Mind Tribe UK. She was also a mentor, a trauma-informed practitioner, mental health and well-being trainer, and she is passionate about youth development and has established 2 voluntary organisations, the Young Entrepreneur Network of Northern Ireland, Female Leadership Academy. I could go on, however, I'm going to hand across to the lady herself. Please welcome Katie Matthews.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. What a lovely introduction. So, so some of you were on my session yesterday. I was explaining to Shauna just before you guys jumped on that there's a thread that goes throughout the 4 sessions that I'm doing across the week. So you can take them as standalone sessions, but there's also a little bit where they kind of build on each other. So yesterday, was looking at me, myself, and mental health, getting a little bit more of a general overview and a couple of tips and tricks and things. And then today we're looking a bit more at this self-care then and about some of the techniques. So there'll be a couple of ones that do overlap, but then I'll be giving you a couple of extra ones as well. Okay, so bear with me, and I apologize if it's boring for anyone that's already listened, but hopefully it will be interesting and useful. So as Shauna said, I'm Katie, and I am the founder of the Mind Tribe. You've heard my big spiel of an introduction there about all the different hats that I wear, but essentially I am a wellbeing trainer, or a mental health and wellbeing trainer. I'm an entrepreneur, and I work with a plethora of organizations, of schools, training teachers, training educators, training lecturers, and then doing sessions with students themselves, with young people, for charities, big corporate organizations, so all different things. And then as well as that, founded the different businesses and organizations, and I'm also the Northern Ireland National Director for the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And I was very happy. I got appointed in December last year when I was just 28, so very happy about that. I think I might be the youngest one in the world for the Global Entrepreneurship Network, but don't quote me on that. I need to find out for definite. So I can't be claiming yet on recorded things, So, but yes, that's a little bit of background of who I am. But the main thing really is that I have 12 years lived and living experience with mental illness. So I'm always very open. Anybody that came to my session yesterday will know that I'm very open speaking about my own mental health, my experiences with trauma and mental illness, and I feel that it's very important that I do that as somebody who has got a bit of a leadership platform, if you like, or a platform where I can use my voice. So hopefully you'll find today's session, as I say, interesting and useful. Just a couple of things, because of obviously the nature of the session. I always give a trigger or a topic warning. So just to keep yourself psychologically safe throughout the session. So if at any point, you do feel triggered by something, you can come away from your laptop, you can come out of the session. It's not a problem. You don't have to explain yourself. You just do whatever you need to do to keep yourself right. Okay. The most important thing is self-care. It's quite good actually, because the whole of today's session is about self-care. So hopefully you'll have some really good strategies and techniques and things that you can then carry forward. And then, as Shauna said, I'll try and get through this by about 10 to 5 to 4, and then leave a little bit of time for some questions at the end if anybody does have any. What I've also done, same as yesterday's session, if anybody does want to follow up with me separately, absolutely fine. I'll put my email address in at the end again, for anybody who wants to reach out directly. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can ask a session directly just to me through the chat if you'd prefer that it was anonymous, or to Shauna, but her name's up as Ulster Employability. Okay, so if you're looking for Shauna, you won't find it. Right, so what is self-care then? So this is our definition of self-care. Self-care is any activity that we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. Okay, so you can see there, self-care is quite a broad term. It's covering the mental, emotional, and physical health and well-being. But the key thing here is that it's deliberate. Okay, so you're deliberately choosing to carve out that time for self-care. So it's that dedicated space and time for that. Okay, so we probably all heard this saying about fitting your own gas mask first, or you can't pour from an empty cup. These are phrases that are being used and heard a lot more frequently, which is fabulous. We're having those conversations, but in the essence of that, basically, is just you are the priority. That's all that those messages mean. You have to be the priority, and if we're able to look after ourselves and nourish ourselves and make sure that we're in a good space and a good place, we're then able to be at our best excuse me, for other people as well. So that's something that I've learned across the years within my own journey of trauma and living with mental illness, is that I wasn't able to actually really support others in the way that I wanted to until I had resolved my own traumas and my own things that I'd been through, and actually started to take care of myself. I think sometimes, I don't know if you guys agree with me on this, you can pop into the chat if you do or don't, it's not a problem. I think sometimes we hear that self-care and we almost think of it just like oh right, so you're just having a bit of you time, you're just having a bubble bath, you're just having that little bit of going on a spa day, something like that. A lot of people think of it in that sense, but not necessarily understanding the true meaning of self-care. Let me There we go. Yes, exactly. So what do people think self-care looks like? They think that it's all face masks and bubble baths, and it has to be going to the spa for the weekend and all these big lavish and expensive things. But is that the true form of self-care? So I suppose I'll ask that to you guys. It is obviously some form of self-care, but would you say that that is the end? Would you say it ends at those things, or do you think there's more to it than that? Yeah, exactly. So Amy says no. Perfect. Yep. Yep, absolutely. So there's definitely more to it. Absolutely. A lot more, definitely more. Fantastic. Well, that's it. Yeah. So some people, bubble baths and face masks and all those things, a lot of the time, it's not enough. It's not enough if you are really just depressed, but now with a face mask on. Exactly, Becca. That's it. That is the nail on the head there. So you're like, I've still got it, but now I've just got a face mask on instead. I still feel the exact same, but I'm in the bath now with some bubbles. So there is so much more to it than that. And I think sometimes with mental health and mental illness, we inflate or we confuse some things, or perhaps we don't necessarily understand them, and what they look like then in real life. So as much as they are wonderful, and for some people, it's not to undermine, for some people, that's perfect. That's what they need. That's how they relax, and that is their self-care. However, if you're like myself and you also live with mental illness, or you're struggling with stress, that's not enough, as we've all agreed there. So other forms of self-care then, and this is one of the big ones. I always put this first because this is actually my biggest issue, if you like, is my relationship with food. So I don't know if anybody else is the same, but I am an emotional eater. And I mean by that I eat when I'm happy, I eat when I'm sad, I eat when I'm celebrating, I eat when I'm upset, I eat when I'm bored. Yes. So so that is it, literally all the way, healthy eating. And it's something that I've only actually got a hold of. I think about breakfast when going to bed. So do I, Courtney. As soon as I get up, I'm like, right, what's for dinner? And that's it. When I'm stressed, exactly. So that, yeah, I focus in it even more then. It's, oh, but it's my treat, but I deserve it because I've done something good. Oh, I got a contract, or I got this job or something, oh, but then I need to go out for a meal. Oh, but I have to get put in. I have to get a starter because, that's what. So it starts to spiral then. And that's one thing that I've really had to work on. I've actually used the pandemic time to try and utilize that opportunity to eat more healthily. And I have to say, it's gone well. I've lost 3 stone in the pandemic. I'm very pleased with that. But I've definitely still got more to do. But the thing is, with healthy eating, it's not just a case of, you know, thanks, Shauna. Thank you very much, guys. It's not just, I think I just come on here like just to get compliments. I love it. Like, you guys just praising me for losing weight. Thank you. Still got a long way to go though for when I get married next year, but that's another story. So with the healthy eating, it's not just a case of, you know, right, here's a bowl of leaves. You're going to have to do that. You know, food is exciting and it's interesting, you know, and it's something that's social as well. And that's something that's been very hard for people, you know, over the last 14 or 15 months, is that it's a very sociable thing to do. So for me, there was a phrase that I heard at the start of the pandemic. I just saw it on one of my friends' Facebook pages, and it really stuck with me. And I say it now to myself, if I am, you know, looking basically to binge, you know, if I just go, right, I just want chocolate, but it won't be, you know, I'll eat one of the multi-pack, it will be the whole multi-pack. So I had to start saying this to myself, and it was just really simple. I just said, food is fuel, not therapy. And I just thought, that's so simple and so powerful. Food is fuel, not therapy. And I thought, God, that really puts into perspective my relationship with food. You know, that's what I've been using it as a form of therapy, almost like an outlet. And then, thank you, Julie. Absolutely. So food is fuel, not therapy. So with the healthy eating, what can be really great to support your mental health is increasing vitamin D and also increasing vitamin B12. So that doesn't just have to come from food. Of course, we get vitamin D from natural light, but we can also, you know, take vitamins. I have ones, not tablets. I take antidepressants and everything else, so I don't want to take more tablets every day. So I just have a little spray, and you can buy them. You know, one of them I take to multivitamin. The other one I spray is vitamin D, and the other one then is B12. And they are fantastic for improving your mood, for even things, you know, like looking after your skin. I live with a chronic autoimmune condition, which also presents itself as a skin condition as well. So that would be a big thing for me, you know, taking the vitamin D, particularly for that. But the B12 is great for energy. So if you're feeling, you know, with depression particularly, you know, you're feeling extremely exhausted, really tired, and B12 is great for that. Oh, Charlene, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, my mum is the same. She gets the B12 injections as well every 3 months. So it, you know, instead of me getting that, I just choose to do the little spray every day. So there's a few different ways, but it's very useful to know that, because you can look at your diet and say, well, maybe if I just added in that one extra little bit, or, you know, I don't have to necessarily do it through food. I can take the little, you know, sprays or the tablets. But definitely, yeah, keep an eye out for those. Yeah, that's it from Holland and Barrett, and they taste nice as well. The ones that I've got taste like peach and raspberry or something as well, you know, so they're not like, nah. With some of them, you know, when you spray it, and it's like you've sprayed dirt in your mouth, and you're like, no, thanks. So the next one, this is something we spoke about yesterday, and I thought it was really important to reiterate this when it comes to self-care. Laura, I'll get the name at the end. I cannot remember the name of the brand or anything, but my ones I got from Amazon, because they came as a multi-pack basically, but Rebecca's saying you can get them from Holland and Barrett as well. But I'll come back to you in the end about that. Just remind me, because I'll forget. So yes, this is what I wanted to circle back on, is doing nothing and not feeling guilty. This is something we spoke about yesterday, and everybody, you know, started going, oh my goodness, yes, I do this. I feel guilty when I'm doing nothing. I feel like I'm not being productive. I feel, you know, as if I'm not actually, you know, contributing, or I'm not worthy to take that time. So doing nothing and not feeling guilty about it is one of the hardest things to do, but it is so worth it. And it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to say to yourself, right, for the whole day, I'm not going to do anything, because, you know, I know for me, living with anxiety, I find it very difficult to sit and do nothing for long periods of time. So I will start then going and cleaning something. If I switch the laptop off, I start going to clean, or I'll take the dogs out, or I have to do something because my mind's racing all the time. So sometimes I will just sit, and it doesn't have to be long, it can be 10-15 minutes, just sitting, doing nothing, listening to the birds or having a cup of tea, and just connecting with myself, asking myself how I am, checking in. That's great, Rebecca, just in that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So yeah, not feeling guilty, and appreciating as well that we're worthy of investing that time in ourselves. And for me, that was a big thing that I've always struggled with, particularly with mental illness, is self-worth, and thinking that I'm actually valued and worthy enough of actually looking after myself. Struggling particularly with depression. I don't know if anybody else has felt this. Don't feel obliged to share if you don't want to. But a lot of them, you struggle with guilt, and you struggle with those feelings of unworthiness, and it's so difficult to be able to overcome that. So just those little things, as we've already said. So the eating, we can do nothing and not feel guilty. I love this. This is one of my absolute favorites, is putting on clean pajamas. And I know that sounds random, but I might have some fellow pajama lovers in the house. So the pandemic's been great for me, shielding. I've just been pajama central. But doing little things like that for yourself, changing your bed sheets so they're nice and fresh. How nice does it feel when you get into that? And when you are struggling with mental illness, it's so difficult to summon the energy or the mental strength to be able to do some of these things. But the thing that I say to myself, and what I have been saying to myself now for the last 2 years or so, when I've really started to heal and overcome trauma and different things that have happened, has been to say to myself in my head, future Katie will thank you. And I know that sounds weird because I'm almost talking about myself in third person, but I literally say that to myself. I say, future Katie will thank you for doing this. And then when it does happen, I do actually thank my previous self. So if I have changed the bed sheets, and I've had a nice shower, got new pajamas and everything else, and I actually stop for a sec and I thank myself for doing that, and appreciate that I invested that time into the future me, if that makes sense. I don't know if anybody else does that. But it's a great technique for self-love and appreciation, and actually valuing what you're doing for yourself. Because the thing is, we wouldn't think twice about doing these things for other people. A lot of the time we'd be like, yep, no problem, I'll do that for someone else. But when it comes to ourselves, for some reason, we don't feel like we can, or we don't feel like we should, or that we deserve it. So it's just shifting that mindset. Your future self is going to thank you for this. Future me is going to thank previous me. Of course, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. We said yesterday about we had somebody contribute that does Pilates. I mentioned Tai Chi. You've got loads of different ways that you can build that mind-body connection. Okay, and that's really, really important, because a lot of the time, mental illness, people think of it as just something that's in your head, but it actually affects you in as a whole person. It affects you physically as well. So looking after all those elements is going to really, really help you. Of course, sleep and rest. If your body needs it, you have to listen to it. Reading a book, for some people that is their little escapism. It could be just sitting down, as I said, with a nice drink or a nice cup of tea and watching your 1 hour what's it, like, your guilty pleasure on telly, as your form of escapism. But whatever it is that you need to do and that brings you joy, there's no reason why you can't do that, and carve out that little bit of time every day that is just for you. And another one that we said yesterday as well is about filling in a diary or a journal. But what you can do, if that diary, maybe you don't want somebody to see it, or you'd be afraid of people finding it, is to write things out, and then you can rip them up into little pieces and put them in the bin. You could burn it if you wanted to. There's loads of ways that you can work with it without necessarily having to feel vulnerable, because that's something that stopped me for a long time from journaling, was the fear of somebody else finding it. And not wanting them to look at that and think, oh my goodness, like what on earth is going on here? You know, we need to step in. But it's just that outlet, you know, having that time and space just to reflect as well. And that builds your self-awareness, it builds your self-confidence, and also allows you to regulate your emotions, because, you know, you're seeing it from a different perspective when it's written. If that makes sense. Does anybody already do any of these on here? Or has anybody got a favourite one out of those that they particularly enjoy out of that list that's on there so far? Very good. Sleep and rest, favourite, yep. I agree, Catherine. Most of them, good stuff. Gratitude journaling, brilliant. That's it. Clean bed sheets. You know, some of these, they're really simple. There's accidental 2-hour naps, very good. If I took them, I wouldn't be sleeping at night. That'd be the problem. But yes, absolutely brilliant. Look at this. I love that. Kiran, I hope I'm saying that correctly, about a cozy atmosphere. I don't know if you've heard of something, guys. It's called Hygge. I'm just going to type that into the chat. That's how you spell it, but it's pronounced Hygge. And it's from those sort of like Scandinavian countries. Yeah. And that is about, you know, creating those comfortable, cozy, safe, welcoming, warm environments. Oh, lovely. Getting fresh flowers for yourself. Do you know what? I've never done that, so I might take that, Pauline. I like that as an idea. Very good. Yeah, that's it. So for some people, it is putting their makeup on, getting their hair done, makes them feel ready for the day, makes them feel, you know, as if they can take on the challenges. I wish I was like that. Mine's a case of, right, shove it up in a bun, no makeup, there we go, ready to go. But I think I need some tips from Pauline. Thank you very much for sharing. So there are some other forms then of self-care. You know, it's not just about mindfulness or meditating or yoga or what you eat. There's more to it than that. As we've already said, there's a lot of depth to this. So again, some of these we spoke about yesterday, about setting boundaries and saying no. So yesterday, the guys were, you know, all writing in and said, yes, I struggle with this. And it's something that I struggle with, you know, is saying no to people and not wanting to let people down. And I think over the pandemic, it's actually been really, really good. I don't know if anybody else has had the similar experience, but living with anxiety, I've actually really loved the lockdown, because it meant that people, it sounds really bad, people couldn't randomly turn up at my house. So there was no like element of surprise almost, you know, where I wasn't prepared. And it allowed me to say no to things without feeling guilty. So whereas now, because things are starting to open back up, I know a lot of young people that I'm working with, well, and adults to be honest as well, you know, they're worried because they're freaking out essentially about re-establishing that boundary and actually having to say no to things that, you know, they don't want to go to. Absolutely, assertiveness is so important, because at the end of the day, you are your own security guard. You are your own cheerleader. You know, you have to protect yourself and do what's right for you. And as much as other people, you know, may try and make you feel bad about that or make you feel guilty, you have to remember, you know, that I am the priority here. Yeah, definitely scared for life to resume properly. Absolutely. And I am too. You know, I've been indoors now for 15 months. So I've only been out a handful of times. So I think I'm going to be a bit a bit overexpressive when I see everyone in person again. So what else then? We can switch off from our work, you know, whether it's having a different workspace, whether it's having a certain time, whether it's giving yourself, you know, working in sort of 45, 50-minute blocks, 10-minute break. You may work like that. Some people, you know, would like to have a specific space or spot in the house where they work, and then when they come away from that, that's them finished. So trying to separate that a little bit. And that's what's been hard, I think, with the pandemic as well, is that blend or that crossover between home and work. You know, where does it end and where does it begin, type thing. So those blurred boundaries are quite difficult to deal with. This is these next two ones were funny yesterday as well, but removing negative or toxic people. Okay, so, you know, you may have somebody in your head that you can think of, and, you know, that they're perhaps maybe not the best person for you to be around. They may be having a negative influence, or that they may be becoming, you know, a toxic person to be around. And by removing them from your life, as much as it can be very, very difficult, and sometimes, it can be quite painful as well. But again, it's about almost looking at it from an objective third person point of view to go, if this was happening to my friend or to somebody else that I care about, would I advise them in this way? So whatever you would advise somebody else, the worst, we're awful. We're the worst at taking our own advice. Hands up, I'm the same. I can give out all this advice and then I have to go, right, well, I have to actually practice what I preach here. But linked in with that then is unfollowing social media accounts. So yesterday we spoke about, not watching the news as much, unfollowing those social media accounts where they're making you feel bad, or they're giving you sort of a negative feeling. Maybe they're making you feel as if your life isn't good enough or that you're not good enough. And the thing is, all we're doing every time we click on that, every time we scroll and see that, we just keep reinforcing that negative viewpoint, that negative opinion. And that keeps going round and round in your head then. And that's where the rumination can start from, which is linked with depression, which is where you're overly thinking and going round and round on the same things. You're stuck and you're unable then to move forward from that, basically. Just going to read this quickly. So Amy said, the issue I have with cutting toxic and negative people is that usually they are hurting, so are hurting others. Yes, and I'd feel bad cutting them out in case they just need someone to care. Okay, I totally get what you mean. Yes, I totally get what you mean with that, because sometimes we know that people are expressing themselves in such a way where perhaps they're not doing it with the intent of, being malicious or being nasty, but they may be struggling with something themselves. But that's great, though, that you're even thinking about that, because you're obviously a very compassionate and empathic person, to pick up on that as well, that, well, actually, okay, they might be struggling too. And that's why these sessions, as I said, link together, because this is about how you can look after yourself and protect your bubble today. And then on Friday, we're going to look at, if you want to come, about how we support a friend's mental health. Okay, so we will look at that there. What I would say is you are the priority first, but it doesn't mean that you can't reach out and say, look, I've noticed a couple of changes. Do you want to speak to me, about how you're feeling? Do you fancy a cuppa? Do you want to go for a walk with the dogs? And just doing that, reaching out, you're kind of saying, look, this is my boundary. I don't want to necessarily do this or this, but I understand that you may also be struggling, and I'm going to put that little olive branch out then as well. Okay, so I know that was like the most whistle stop answer on that ever, but hopefully that helps a little bit. Good stuff. Yes, so people saying about unfollowing social media accounts and Insta stories and things. Yes, absolutely. I have to stop looking at them. There's a few people in particular that I have had to stop looking at, because I was getting to the point where it made me feel as if I was incompetent and that I wasn't achieving enough. And that's something that I've always struggled with, is the perfectionism and wanting to be the best at everything and wanting to win at everything. And that comes from being a child. I sports teams and all that there and whatever else, but it was constantly, I want to be the best. I have to be number one. I have to be the best, because if I'm not the best, then I'm not worthy of anything. Then I'm a loser. Then it doesn't count. And it was taking that mindset, and it's taken years. It's not say this is a quick fix, but it's taken years of working on that and recognizing those triggers and the things that are presented to me from other people, and whether or not I agree to let them into my bubble, whether I agree to let that piece of information or that person come into my circle. Okay, and that's what I'm saying about being your own security guard in that bubble. You deserve that protection. That is your safe space. Other forms of self-care then include taking medication. So this is one, particularly when you are struggling with mental illness, it's very hard to do anything. As we said yesterday, brushing your teeth, having a shower, answering the phone, replying to emails, everything feels difficult. And taking medication, there's been times when all I've had to do is come up to bed and take 2 tablets and go to sleep. And I was that low, basically, that I actually chose to sleep downstairs rather than walk up the stairs and take my tablets. And it sounds irrational, from now when I look back and I think, what? Like, just take the tablet. You know, they're there to help you. But when you're in that frame of mind, it can be so difficult. And all the women in my family have a diagnosed mental illness. And this is something that a couple of the women in my family also struggle with, is taking that medication. And they have dual diagnosis, so they have addiction issues and also the mental illness as well. And that's something, you know, taking that medication is the start, you know, and not everybody is for medication, and that's fine. It doesn't work for everybody, and that's not the path that, you know, everyone wants to go down. But if you have decided to do that, I say, you know, really, really try your best. And if you need to, get someone else to monitor it, you know, your parent or your partner. So my partner would say to me now at night before we go to sleep, he goes, did you take your tablets? That's all he says. Oh, have you taken them? That's it. And then I go, oh, and it reminds me. Or you can have, has anyone seen those little boxes that have the days on them? You know, you can get things like that, or you can get a little chart or just something that you tick off. And when you're ticking things off as well, it's giving you that little sense of achievement. You know, all those little things. Does anybody else absolutely love writing to-do lists just so that you can tick stuff off? Like, and the accomplishment you feel, yes, when you tick it off, absolutely. And like, I would even do this when I've completed something. If I the creative list too, yep. If I haven't written something down that I've done, this is, I go back and write it on my list so I can cross it off. Does anyone else do that? Please tell me I'm not alone. Okay, good. Yep. That's it. Oh, thank God. Right. I'm not alone then. Yep. Good stuff. So there's a few oh my goodness, I love this. Which I'm like, yep, that's me. So, but you get that little sense of achievement, don't you, when you're ticking it off? That's why you're doing it, because you want to feel as if, yes, I've completed that. So, you know, you can do that for lots of different things, you know, and if you enjoy it, like I find writing lists actually therapeutic. Like I have to do it. So the feeling of yeah, absolutely. So, oh, very good. Yeah, so some people won't write it, but some people will have that in their head, you know. That's brilliant, Pauline. Actually, that point you've made there. Also, if you're living alone, get someone who calls to check if you did X, for example, taking your pills or getting out of bed. Brilliant, absolutely. And having that support network is so crucial and so important. And that's something, as I say, we'll be looking at more on Fridays, how we can support a friend then. So thank you for raising that. That's a brilliant point. Going to the doctors, of course, is a form of self-care to ensure that, you know, we're in tip-top shape. Asking for help and support, as much as it, you know, it can be absolutely terrifying, it is the most powerful thing that you can do to look after yourself. Because when you finally say, do you know what, I need help with this, you're taking control then of your own life. And it gives you that feeling of control back. Right, I am in charge of my journey here. I'm in charge of my recovery and my healing. And it took me 5 years of attempting to go to counselling and keep being re-traumatized to then say, do you know what, I need proper help and support here. And I then went to a trauma specialist, and that was a couple of years ago, and I've been able to recover very well, you know, from different things that were experienced. And also finally, less time on devices. So the less time on devices, the blue light, I'm sure we know about this anyway, the blue light that comes from devices. Exactly. Yeah, that's it, Katrina. So, you know, particularly if you're trying to sleep or relax, screens aren't good for that, because the blue light is stimulating the part of your brain to keep you awake, basically. Apologies if anybody's a science expert, because that was the most basic description of that. But that's essentially what's happening. So we want to try at least to be off your phone or your devices an hour before bedtime. And also things like not having a TV in your room. But I say that, and I'm the biggest hypocrite, because I have a television in my room and then I have my phone plugged in next to me at night. So yes, that's it. I put mine on nighttime mode. And I also saw as well, you can get glasses. You can get glasses that have a blue light filter as well. So if anybody is particularly wanting to play solitaire in bed on their phone or whatever they're doing, you can get the blue glasses. That will help. That's it. That's a good idea. Yeah, plugging it in on the other side of the room, or leaving it downstairs, or leaving it upstairs. Sorry, absolutely. And that, yes, the glasses are really good for preventing headaches as well, because, as you know, it's the blue light that is stimulating that part of your brain essentially. I love that, Courtney. Me on the way to bed, the glasses on. Very good. Oh, that's good, Nicholas. I didn't know you could do that. So Nicholas has just said there, I have flux. Is that right? Am I saying it right? Flux on my PC to change the color settings. Very good. So recognizing triggers then. So triggers come in so many forms, and a lot of the time, because this word is almost becoming more popular, and I hate to say that, but it's almost like trendy at the moment, you know, to say, oh, I'm triggered, I was triggered. But that isn't what it is, you know, in its true essence. Recognizing a trigger is really, really, really important, and isn't something, you know, that a throwaway term, you know, oh, I was so triggered by that, when we're being dramatic almost, you know, or we're using it in an emphatic way in a conversation. But when we think about triggers, there are so many things that can bring back memories, that can create intrusive thoughts, that can spark that reaction. And it's worth, you know, if you do recognize that, oh, okay, that has triggered me, make a wee note of it, or just a little mental note even, you know, okay, that's happened. I went into this place, or I saw this person, or I smelt a certain smell. I heard a certain sound. So those things, I'll tell you this, just a little topic warning or trigger warning for what I'm going to say next. So in university, unfortunately, in my final year, a few months before I graduated, I was sexually assaulted, and I was obviously then living, you know, with PTSD symptoms, struggling. I was diagnosed with anxiety. Then after that, couldn't leave the house for 6 months, couldn't speak to people, couldn't talk. Just was like a shadow of who I am now, essentially. But basically, the reason I say that is because the triggers were the things that, of course, you know, were causing these reactions within my body, you know, and I didn't know why I was having a panic attack. So, for example, I got on the train one day to go to work in Belfast, and a man got on the train, and he looked like the person who had attacked me. And I just went into meltdown because my body reacted. It was holding that trauma, and it went, you're in danger. And I had a panic attack on the train. This happened a few times, you know, whether it was the man who looked like him, or whether it was a certain aftershave smell. So, you know, we don't necessarily have to think of triggers as, you know, they're these big, obvious signs. But that's why sometimes we may see people, you know, almost as if it looks as if there's no reason. It can look to us as if there's no reason for them to be feeling anxious, or there's no reason for them to have a panic attack. But all those triggers, like, look at that, that's a lot of stuff that could be going on with people. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be severe trauma. You know, it can be general stresses as well, of exams and tests and reading out loud and public speaking, those types of things. But it's just worth recognizing within yourself, are any of these things, you know, causing me to have that hypersensitive reaction, basically, or hyper arousal, sorry, and to be in that hyper aroused state then. Okay. So off the back of that, then we're thinking about, well, how are we going to overcome this? Doing a bit of mindfulness. Mindfulness will not work for everyone, so please don't think you're, you know, you're wrong or you're broken or anything like that, you know, if it doesn't work for you. Sometimes if you have experienced severe trauma, mindfulness or meditation particularly can cause dissociation, which can then trigger, you know, further issues. But if you have anything, you know, like that, maybe speak to somebody who is a professional, or who can advise you for you know, which activities might be best. But what I would say, if you have experienced some sort of severe trauma, or you don't like doing the meditations and almost like the thinking exercises, try some of the more practical ones. So what some of the ones that you do with your body. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And that's it, you know, talking about triggers. Yeah, using it, you know, it can normalize it. And I think it's just the context, that you're using it in. But you are right, and it's great to see that, we are taking away that stigma, and we are talking about mental health much more openly. And as you say, they're creating those safe spaces for discussion. Thank you for sharing that. So let's see. I'll come back to that Pauline at the end if that's okay, because I am not going to get through all of this. Otherwise, I'll be going at the end. So what was I doing? Defining mindfulness. There we go. So a mental state then that is achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. So that's the big long spiel one. But you can see I've picked out there, the main part is about awareness, that present moment awareness. But also what's fantastic about mindfulness is that it's non-judgmental. And what I mean by that, I don't mean, somebody looks at you and goes, oh, I don't like her hair when she's doing that meditation. I don't mean that type of judgment. I mean, it's not a case of you can fail. You can't do it wrong. So straight away, that can take away that fear and that anxiety about doing it, because it's a personal experience. Nobody can tell you that you're doing it incorrectly. Okay, so that's what I'm saying about you do what works for you. So some of the benefits, these are all scientifically proven, by the way. This isn't just, me making these up. So it can improve things like your resilience, your self-compassion, your confidence. Emotional regulation is a big one. Your sleep, your clarity in thinking, and also immune function. So we were speaking earlier, weren't we, about that relationship between food and mood, or, what you're eating and how you're feeling. They're doing more research into this at the moment about your gut health. And how looking after your gut health supports your mental health and well-being. So it'd be really, really interesting to see, where that goes in terms of research. But we know that looking after our immune system is obviously a good thing all around physically and for our mental health as well. And allows you to then reduce your stress levels, your blood pressure comes down, your heart rate reduces. And also then, that decreases that overall anxiety, the rumination as well, which is, that overthinking that we spoke about earlier, and also chronic pain. And this is something that I thought was fantastic. There was a documentary on Netflix. I think it was just called Pain or Heal, one or the other. I think it might be Heal, actually, where they took this group of people that had, severe injuries and chronic conditions and things, and they worked through the power of mindfulness and different exercises and things, and basically they were able to heal themselves. And there was part of me that thought, how can that be real? Surely that is not real. And then I watched it and I was like, okay, this has really given me a new perspective here. There's another one as well on Netflix at the moment. It's something around the use of psychedelics. I don't know if anybody has done any research or any reading or knows anything around that, about psychedelics actually being used to treat mental illness, particularly to treat depression. Oh, it is heal. Good stuff. I was like, it's one or the other. It's pain or heal. And yeah, exactly. So it's basically like, we would call them magic mushrooms, but it's essentially using, the microdosing, absolutely. And we watched it last night and it was absolutely fascinating, the results they got. So definitely have a wee watch of that. But I'm not encouraging, by the way, that people go out and start taking magic mushrooms, but just from a point of interest and research. Oh, that'll be good when it came away from Katie's session. She told me to take magic mushrooms. Very good. So some practical activities then. These are a couple that we did yesterday. So they're nice and simple. It's just literally, your first one is your diaphragmatic or your belly breathing. So you're literally just breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I'll keep speaking as you're doing that. So you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you're doing that, you want your feet to be flat on the floor, your back nice and straight, so you're able to feel your lungs, and also keeping your shoulders down. Because, the biggest thing that people do when you tell them to breathe is they start going like that and lifting their shoulders and overacting and overemphasizing the breathing. But you're just doing it, keep them relaxed, keep them nice and down. And you want to be doing it about 30 breaths or so, or for about 5 minutes. Okay. Really, really nice and calming, super simple. And it can also be done then with this infinity one. So the infinity breathing is just your infinity symbol basically on its side, or an 8 on its side, should I say. Yes, scarf breathing's lovely as well. You can do loads of different things as well with the name's gone out of my head. What are they called? Not sensory scarves. That's it. You can do loads of things with them as well. Particularly great if anyone has kids too. So this infinity breathing, you can trace it into the air, and you can breathe in through your nose as you trace one side, and breathe out through your nose as you trace the other. You can draw it on a piece of paper. You can trace it onto your palm. You can do it onto your tummy, onto the table in front of you. It's just to give you something to focus on as you're breathing in and breathing out then. This is another one that I mentioned yesterday, and I think after that I've got some new ones. So the triangle breath that you can see there is if you're just trying to relax a little bit, but you're not feeling necessarily overly stressed. So you're breathing in for 3 seconds, holding for 3 seconds, and breathing out for 3 seconds. Or you can do it as a 4-4-4. Same with the hand breathing then. All you're doing is literally tracing up one side and breathing in. Pause when you get to the tip, and then breathing out through your mouth when you trace down the other side. So you'd be going along your whole hand. You could do one hand, you could do both hands, you could do it onto someone else could do it onto you. You could do it as a partner activity or with a child. You can draw around your hands and then trace them on that and decorate them, and fill them with all the different things that you love, and you can turn them into big activities or extended activities if you want to. But the key thing here is if you are feeling very, very anxious, I mentioned this yesterday as well, actually, about the triangle breathing. You want to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds. Okay, so the important thing is that it goes up incrementally. So it could be 3, 5, 6, or 5, 6, 7. As long as the out breath is longer than the in breath. So shall we see if anybody was listening yesterday and can remember the reason? Can anybody remember the reason that was here? Or maybe just somebody who wasn't there yesterday but knows. Why would we want to breathe out for longer than we breathe in? Very good, Charlene, you remembered. Top student. So it's to do with the carbon dioxide levels in your blood. So the more carbon dioxide in your blood, the more anxious you will feel. So you exhale for longer, and you're getting rid of the excess carbon dioxide then. Okay, so that's a great thing. If I ever feel really stressed, the first thing I do is start to breathe out to exhale everything that I can. Basically, I'm pushing that air out of my body. Exploring your zones then, so thinking about, right, what's in your comfort zone, what is in your stretch zone, what is in your danger zone. Yes, I'm just seeing what Katrina put in there about the fight or flight mode. Absolutely, I mentioned that yesterday. So the fight or flight is obviously, when we're hyper aroused or when we're in a survival situation. And what happens here when we're doing the breathing, when we are exhaling for longer, we're activating our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the bit that comes in and says, you're okay. It's all right. We can calm down. You're not in danger. Okay. So yeah, you are right there, Katrina. Well done. It's so useful, Rebecca, honestly. Even just knowing those things, you're like when I used to have really bad panic attacks, I used to tell myself, you have learned in your head, you know this, you have learned, if you breathe out for longer, you will start to calm down. And because I know that, I say that to myself in my head if I am ever feeling very anxious, and automatically, because it's logical, it starts to bring you back down anyway. It starts to ground you more. So these zones, as we were saying, think about that. Think about, what am I really comfortable with? What challenges me in that stretch zone then? So what would push me from the comfort into the stretch? But stretch zone is the optimal zone for learning. That is the space that you want to be in if you're going to grow and develop and challenge yourself. And for some people, if you're struggling with mental illness, the stretch zone could be having a shower, and that's okay. But it's recognizing where you are at the moment, and also meeting yourself where you are. We talk about meeting other people where they are. Meet ourselves where we are. You know, don't put these pressures on ourselves, you know, to try and achieve everything. And that stretch zone, that final one we speak about then, is that danger zone. And that's where we are in that fight or flight state. And we're not able to think properly. We're not able to be rational and process. So that's the space, and we want to think, okay, what would take that from a danger space into the stretch zone then? Okay, so that's a good activity. And the other good activity is to do about what you can control. So, you know, inside that circle, what are the things that I have control of? My thoughts, my actions, my clothes, what I how I do my hair, my home, all those things. And then on the outside, well, what can I not control? I can't control government policy. I can't control what's happening with the pandemic. I can't control other people's thoughts and actions. And sometimes when you see that written down, it allows you to almost take that objective view again and say, well, these things on the outside, I can start to let go of those because I can't control them anyway. So it can be really great for you. Some other relaxation ideas then. So you could go for a sensory woodland walk. So that's not just going for a walk, it's actually making it a sensory experience. It doesn't have to be woodland, by the way. But you know, a sensory experience. So you're connecting and making it mindful. You know, you're going, okay, well, what can I smell? What can I see? Can I taste anything? What can I touch? What are the textures? You know, and really engaging with the environment around you. Eating in silence sounds weird, but sitting in silence is mindful eating essentially, and actually appreciating each mouthful, appreciating the textures, you know, recognizing the different tastes, sensations that you're feeling. How does it look? How does it smell? Read maybe or write a poem. I find that as a great outlet. You can also get what's it called? Recorded ones on recorded readings. That's what I'm trying to say. By the poet themselves. They actually read them. So you can find those on YouTube as well. It's not to say, you know, everybody's will be there, but there are some. Maybe playing a board game might be good for distraction or helping you relax. Playing with a pet. So playing with a pet is absolutely exceptional. It's actually, again, scientifically proven to reduce your stress, your blood pressure. That is because you have 15 pressure points in each of your hands. And this motion that you do when you stroke a pet activates those pressure points. So those pressure points activate the part of your brain that releases something called delta waves. And the delta waves are what you produce when you're in the REM stage of sleep. So when you're in that REM stage of that deep sleep, where it's healing and restorative, those are the brain waves that you are producing whilst awake when you stroke a pet. You can also produce them by doing something called havening, which is where you get your arms like this and stroke down them. So if you want to, you can have a go at this. It's incredible. They're doing a lot of work with this for treating trauma and PTSD at the moment. So you're going down your arms like this and across your hands if you want an extra hit of positivity. So down your arms and across like that. You can also do it from rubbing your palms together in circles. That activates them as well. And also going across your cheeks like this. So all of those activate delta waves in your brain, and you need to do it at least 30 times to feel like a real benefit from it. Oh my goodness, I can just see puppy rooms on campus. Sorry, that is life dream right there. I have 3 dogs. That is literally like, I think I might just call in. Like,
Katie, it is brilliant. That's why when we were talking about animals, the puppy rooms, Students' Union organised that around exam times, and everybody bees down to it. It's fantastic. It's so calming. There's nobody speaking. It is, oh wow.
well, that's why though. That's why, Shauna, you know, animals are used in therapy. You know, we have equine therapy with horses and companion animals and things like that for that reason. You know, and it's great to know that there's science behind it though. You know, it's not just them saying, oh, it's really nice to hug a puppy. Yes, it is. It's really cute. But if you stroke them, you're actually looking after your own mental health as well. You know, so win-win for everyone. You can do things, you know, lighting a scented candle. Again, thinking about scent. So something that is, you know, relaxing for you and not triggering. Spraying lavender essence on your pillow. If you don't like lavender, you can use things like chamomile. I use that every night, and I also wear at night, I don't know if anybody's seen these, they're Bluetooth eye mask headsets, and they're totally black, but they've got headphones that are built in, so it doesn't hurt when you're laying down. And I actually play from YouTube the delta waves, so I looked that up. So I was talking about the delta waves, the healing. I listen to that, so I have an 8-hour playlist that I put on at night, and I've been doing it now for maybe 3 months, and it has literally like changed everything, my sleep. So look up that as well. And then listening to the sounds of nature, super nice and simple, just feel nice and grounded and connecting with the world around you. So remember, the takeaway from today's session is self-care is not selfish. Okay, self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. I know I whistled through the last couple of bits there because I'm a talker, as you will know by now, if you didn't know that from yesterday. But there's so much, you know, I'd love to be able to speak to you guys about. But if anybody does want to sit on now and, you know, ask me any questions, I think, was it Pauline had a couple of questions? Please feel free, you know, you can fire them into the chat. You can take yourself off of mute. If you want to be super brave, you can put your video on. Oh my goodness, God forbid. So there's no pressure, don't worry. But yes, I'm more than happy, as I say, to take questions now. And if you know you want to reach out to me directly and to follow up separately, that's absolutely fine. You've got my details there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm just going to pop in mindtribeuk@gmail.com. There we go, and there's my direct email address if anybody does want, you know, to get in touch or anything. So I will hand back to Shauna now. My goodness, bang on the button, 4 o'clock by my clock.
we done well. We done well. I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed this session. What I've done in the chat box, guys, is I have popped in a few comments up. I have popped in the links for Katie sessions on Friday. She's doing 2 sessions on Friday. I know I'm going to be there hosting with her for one of the sessions, and Norman's in on the second session. So let's continue this journey with Katie. I have to say I'm looking forward to the next 2 sessions. Also, I've popped in there in the session as well to some other activities, and I can see Stella has as well too popped in some other sessions that you might be interested in as well too. But guys, ultimately, thank you, Katie, for supporting this. This has been a really worthwhile. I think definitely some of the take homes I've got. I've been scribbling notes throughout the session. So thank you, guys. As Katie said, we're going to be about here for a few more moments. If anybody want to ask questions, I'm actually going to stop the recording of the session